going to, ever. Even if there's a fire.
Benjamin Franklin lived in London in a house on 36 Craven Street. In 1776, more than 200 years later, 15 bodies were found in the basement, buried in a secret windowless room beneath the garden. In 1998, conservationists were doing repairs on 36 Craven, looking to turn Franklin's old haunt into a museum. From a 1 meter wide, 1 meter deep pit, over 1,200 pieces of bone were retrieved. Remnants of more than a dozen bodies, 6 were children. Forensic investigations showed that the bones dated to Franklin's day. Holy shit.
Hell, they already told you that the spell is over when Lizzie over there died and they snapped the wand and put it right on her casket for the whole world to see. Most of y'all missed that, went right over your head. Now what queen you know? All the queens I know carry scepters or staffs. This one had a wand. Only people I know that carry wands is witches and warlocks. See, they putting everything right in front of your face because it's revelation. You thinking it's a great war of Armageddon, but it means to reveal.
Just like a military industrial complex, there's a whole homeless industrial complex, and there are people who are enriching themselves by keeping the problem alive, and it's just bananas, because then people just say, oh, this is why we need higher taxes. You just need to throw more money at the problem. It's like, guys, I think $150K per person is more than adequate. The problem is that the people in power do not genuinely want these problems fixed, and that's a sad thing to say, but that's the obvious reality of it.
Well, and we know it can be handled if they want to, because remember when the Chinese premier came to the Bay Area?
Oh my gosh.
All of a sudden, the area you're talking about got cleaned up. And, you know, I drive to work when I was on radio down a street called Forest Lawn Drive. And there were cars on either side, vans, dirty, filthy. You could tell they'd been there for months. People were living in these vans, block after block after block after block. And I'm driving down that street about 2-3 months ago. They're all gone. Street looks like it used to look. Somehow, some way, they got solved.
Let's go, boys. What do? Men, we win. We conquer. We dominate. Check this out. Trans woman wins Miss Maryland USA. Another win for the boys. Not only are we dominating women in women's sports, we are now dominating them in beauty pageants. What's up, proud man right here? Give me my flowers!
I would want my listeners to understand that sensitivity is not the highest value in an intellectual community, but truth is, and sometimes it can only be gotten to by saying things that some people don't want to hear.
There's a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
A new study just recently came out that was able to measure which emotion produces the most powerful frequency out of the human body, and it wasn't love. This emotion was 4,000 times stronger than love. The study is called the Spain Scale of Emotion Research Project, and that's spelled S-P-A-N-E. In this research project, they were able to gather 25,000 subjects and put them all in the room, where they were able to take instruments that could measure the frequencies being emitted from the human body. And these instruments were so precise that they could isolate different emotions that humans were experiencing based off of the frequency that was being emitted from their bodies. These instruments were so precise that they were able to isolate the differences between anger, frustration, passion, joy, arousal, sadness, any emotion you could think of. And the most powerful emotion that was detected by these instruments was authenticity. The frequency that authenticity emitted through the human body was 4,000 times stronger than the frequency emitted from love. True power comes from being your authentic self, and now this is scientifically proven. So the key to raising your vibration is loving yourself enough to be real, to be authentic, to tell the truth, to believe in what you say, to believe in yourself.
Always try to make sure, like, my friends that didn't choose the streets, the ones that we consider to be squares, like, I always try to make sure I tell them how proud of them I am, because they the strong ones, they the tough guys, they the ones who didn't break. Most of us broke early in life, man. We fell to the pressure. We fell to the temptation. And they came outside the same hood and walked past the same temptation, all the shit that's going on, the peer pressure, and they stayed focused. They stayed focused. They ain't let that shit break them. All the girls calling them lames, not wanting to give them no pussy because they considered to be a square and corny and all that shit, and they still stayed on course. They didn't break. Then you got us that going in and out of jail, and we come home and motherfuckers praise us like we did something so good. Like, oh, what you did? Oh, because you ain't tell. Like, oh, yeah, because you was so ignorant. You was ignorant on a high level. We rewarding you, huh? They go some clothes and some money in your pocket. Welcome home. But homie who just did 4 years in college, we ain't got shit for him. And I'm talking about me. Because it's dudes that went to college, came back and seen me, and I ain't have nothing for them. Yo, what's up, yo? I'm proud of you, bro. But my man who come home from jail, niggas trying to figure out how to scramble up some money to get them some outfits and all this shit, man. Straight ass backwards shit. And the ones who we consider to be the squares is the ones that always show up in the end. Those is the real friends. The square ones is the ones that always come and show up in the end and hold you down. They deserve their flowers. They are the real ones, man.
Tell us the 6 kinds of narcissists.
So the grandiose narcissist is our classic narcissist, the preening, arrogant, pretentious, attention-seeking, but kind of fun at times, stellar CEO on the stage. The dark side of this is the vulnerable narcissist. These are sullen, resentful, victimized, aggrieved, passive-aggressive, poor me. There's a lot of failure to launch there. The communal narcissists get their narcissistic supply by being perceived as do-gooders, saviors, people who fix the world. At the most severe end of it would be like a cult leader. Now, the self-righteous narcissist, they're hyper-moral, judgmental, rigid, cold. They're obsessed with rules and order to the detriment of the human beings around them. There's a real workaholic quality, shaming of people who might be down on their luck. The neglectful narcissist, what function do you serve for me? There's very, very little interest in intimacy, closeness. The malignant narcissist, far more severe manipulation, coercion, exploitativeness, isolation. The last stop on the train before psychopathy station.
That's right. That's right. It's in outside of Tromsø, the biggest hub type of thing, part of ASCAT system. This system going from Svalbard, Tromsø, Kiruna in Sweden has the headquarters of the whole system, and then in Lapland, in Finnish Lapland, in Sodankylä. And, you know, when they blast electromagnetic fields, it goes through all of Europe.
And do you think that's a form of mind control?
Oh, it can be used for mind control, of course, like HARP. And that is the danger, because people know nothing about mind control. They don't know that your thoughts can be changed, your attitudes, your feelings. If you love somebody sitting at a computer, even through satellites, can say, okay, let's make it opposite. And you start just detesting the person who you love. You can't be in the same room, you know, you feel uncomfortable. I think this is terrible, because you're making people into biological robots.
British and American researchers, they've created the first synthetic human embryos.
Yeah, it's a terrifying prospect, and when you read about it, it feels a little bit Black Mirror-ish in a way. These synthetic human embryos were created from stem cells. They're groundbreaking for The Guardian, at least, because they required no eggs or sperm. The embryos could be crucial in determining things like genetic disorders, or even perhaps treating repeated miscarriages. But as The Guardian notes, this discovery also falls beyond the realm of regulation in the UK and in most countries, so it does raise a lot of ethical issues.
Deployed in 2017. That was the same year that all the terahertz metamaterials were deployed. So they laid out the backbone, and then the next thing they did was graphinate the population through the COVID pandemic. Here is the system upgrade. We're showing you the 4 different stages so you can follow our concepts here. So first, even with all the technology that they had developed up to this point, it wasn't doing what they wanted it to, meaning controlling humans at the levels of speed and efficiency that they needed. So they did a full system upgrade. This upgrade was initiated in 2017 when they installed the infrastructure for the new system known as the cyber physical backbone. No one in the non-tech world even noticed, but the IEEE world, however, knew all about it. Then, once the infrastructure was deployed, then they graphinated the population through creating a fake pandemic, making people shelter in place for better tracking and tracing abilities, and injected most of the world's population with graphene. They needed the graphene injected, big difference from the bioaccumulation, had to be injected into people's bodies for the amplification of the signals. And the new system with the graphinated population is now ready for the deployment of 15-minute smart cities as a means to control the world's population.
My force detectors tell me you're pretending. All of your systems are about to go down.
Today I am testing Pepsi on my microscope. So we're just going to do one drop and let's see if there's anything in it, because we know that Coca-Cola there is. So I've just put Pepsi Max under my microscope because I know that Coca-Cola has got nanorobots in, and I've left it only for about 10 minutes. And look at this. Look at this structure that's built. I mean, it's only been on my microscope a very, very short time, and this is building all over the slide. I mean, this is insane. So it's all over the slide. You can see the product. You can see the product in the back, the brown product that I put on the slide. But look, this is built everywhere. They're highly lit, and these look like networks already building.
Elon Musk says he will now lock iPhones in an electromagnetic cage at all of his companies after Apple announced a partnership with OpenAI. Apple just announced that OpenAI's ChatGPT will now be integrated into all of its technology. And Musk took to X saying, if Apple integrates OpenAI at the OS level, then Apple devices will be banned at my companies. That is an unacceptable security violation. Visitors will also have to check their Apple devices at the door, where they will be stored in a cage. Not only does Musk view it as a security violation, but he may also see it as competition as well. Musk was one of the earliest backers of OpenAI and served as one of its first co-chairs alongside Sam Altman when it launched. And now Musk's AI startup called XAI has released a large language model named Gronk.
Japan is not living in 2050. You just live in the United States of America.
She's right. China is not in the year of 2050, and neither is Japan. You just live in America. You see, we used to say the same thing. It became this repetitive thing when we went to other countries. Oh wow, they don't have this in America. America doesn't have this. Or, man, where has this been my whole life? High-speed rail, affordable healthcare, nice infrastructure. The reality is, this is how life should be. This is how our tax dollars should be spent. As tax-paying citizens, we deserve the best public services, at least. I wonder where all the money is going. But anyway, it's 2025. Upgrades to daily public services should be a right, not a luxury. It is almost as if they care more about upgrading our phones versus upgrading daily essentials. It was just the other day when we realized that none of these third world countries outside the US are in the future. Their government just knows how to put tax dollars to use in a different way. Could you imagine how the USA would look if they positively innovated technology? It is definitely not normal to see people struggling or homeless. A lot of the things that people think are normal in the US definitely are not. Once you step out the comfort zone and travel, you really begin to understand what is supposed to be normal.
I've never shitted in a tissue before.
You touch shit every single day if you shit.
Why are you touching the shit? The tissue is for the shit.
Are you telling me that y'all just let the doodle fall in the toilet? Y'all don't catch it every time?
Yo. I am about to leave, bro.
How do y'all take a shit? I must have seen this shit wrong.
My nigga.
I've been catching my shit all these years.
Nah, I'm more disgusted than I feel like I can't continue.
What are you talking about?
My stomach
So
is
hold on,
turning.
so y'all just sit there and shit come right out. No way.
What happens if you got the runs or something like that?
Yo,
what do you do then?
That shit, you wash your hands. Why do you think people wash their hands?
Yo, you shit in your hand, bro?
With tissue.
Fai merda.
What is your obsession of the year?
Zac Efron is my obsession. He's here. What you don't know is that Zac Efron and I are the same person. We're not here. We're not actually here. It's like Janet and Michael. We are the same person. He just puts on his wig and a dress, and it's me, and you don't know that, and it's the greatest ruse of all time.
This is a conspiracy theory involving the EPA, the Pentagon, and bugs. As you can see, I live in the great state of New Hampshire. And here in New Hampshire, we recently got something called Lone Star ticks. This is a picture of a Lone Star tick. So as you may know, most ticks, if you get bitten by them, can give you something called Lyme disease, which I actually have because I spend a lot of time in the woods and get bitten by them a lot. But if you get bitten by a Lone Star tick, you can get something called alpha-gal. And what alpha-gal is an allergy to one of the proteins in red meat. So people with alpha-gal can eat chicken and fish, but if they eat beef, pork, or like lamb, they'll get an allergic reaction. So naturally, a lot of people were concerned about the spread of this disease, and they started looking into kind of where it might have come from. And many people were shocked to find that the US government actually experimented on ticks to be used as a bioweapon. This information was really highly publicized in 2019, and the House of Representatives actually ordered that the Pentagon confirm or deny that they did this. That kind of like ruling was very highly publicized, but what's really weird is no matter where you look to find their response, there's absolutely nothing on the internet. There's like a very brief period of time after that ruling where people started thinking that the EPA was spreading them to make people more environmentally friendly in their choice of protein. But other than that, there's like no news coverage or information at all on what the Pentagon actually said. I'm gonna try to look on the dark web as well and see what I can find, but so far I find it really, really strange.
This is amazing. Look here. This is just amazing. Look at this.
No ways. Look at that.
Wow.
Oh my God, God.
This is just.
No, that's unbelievable.
This is. Yo. I saw the.
That's
I don't even have it on.
Yeah.
Alles gut, man kann sich vor allen Dingen in dieser Kamera auch sehen, ob man das gleichmäßig verteilt. Okay.
Y'all hear about this? Studies show bottled water contains 100 times more plastic particles than previously thought. Look, just restart the whole country. Just start from the beginning. A new study found a liter of bottled water contains hundreds of thousands of nanoplastics, which also could cause health risks like gastrointestinal disorders, birth defects, and increased mortality. Mortality, the state of being subject to death, or death especially on a large scale. Research stated a liter bottle of water has an average of 240,000 detectable nanoplastic fragments. Nanoplastics are tiny, undetectable particles from the disposal of plastic waste. 3 popular U.S. bottled water brands was tested and found anywhere from 110 to 3,700, with 7 different plastics being used. The International Bottled Water Association, I did not know that was a group, says there's no evidence of microplastics and the FDA is strict on regulation. Yeah, alright, nigga. Americans buy 50 billion bottled waters every year. Nanoplastics could go through your bloodstream, lungs, brain, and heart. Nanoplastics could cause inflammation in the gut, oxidative stress, and imbalance in cells and tissues. And what's your thoughts on this? Comment that right now. Here go some tips too. If you go plastic, make sure it's BPA free. Drink glass bottled water like Mountain Valley and Saratoga. Then findaspring.com to find natural water.
You want some figures? Okay, latest water test. Tested the rain.
13,100 micrograms per liter of aluminum in the rain in 2013. Normally, it should be 0. So 13,100 is pretty damn much, folks. It used to be 0, then it was 100s in the 2000s, and then since 2010, it's into the 1000s and the latest 13,100. In the snow on Mount Shasta, pristine Mount Shasta, 61,000 feet, no, excuse me, 8,000 foot level, 61,000 micrograms per liter, 4 times the amount that is found in the soil up there. Where in the hell is this stuff coming from if it's not coming from the soil? You know, these tests are international in scope. We're seeing this all over the world, guys. Okay, pH of acid soils is 20 times more alkaline. The aluminum in the soil has doubled in the last 10 years. Aluminum blocks essential nutrients. I am unable in my garden to restore normal pH, and that's because nanoparticles are now in the circulatory systems of both plants and humans. So welcome, fellow guinea pigs. The collapse and decrease of agriculture is something I worry about even more than the previous info about autism and Alzheimer's.
There's nothing to suggest a causal link between clots and the vaccine, so there seems no reason to be worried about either vaccine being used in the UK rollout.
AstraZeneca admits COVID vaccine can cause rare side effect. They're currently admitted in court for the first time that the COVID jab can cause a deadly blood clotting side effect.
It almost seems that people don't believe me when I tell them that the polyester nylon yoga athletic outfits are literally made of plastic. Polyester nylon is plastic, polyethylene terephthalate, and it's plastic processed with insane amounts of chemicals, phthalates, bisphenols, PFAS, forever chemicals, which are all endocrine disruptors, messing with hormones. And it's like they don't even believe me when I tell them. And it's because it's such a hard truth to swallow that it can be causing disease inside of you, can be causing all these issues. It's literally pure, chemically processed pure plastic. And the reason it has these moisture wicking and all these properties, and it's great at getting rid of moisture and bouncing off moisture, is the chemicals they use to process it, the forever chemicals. That's what's giving it those abilities, which make it 1,000 times more harmful. It can literally cause infertility. Say you do have a child and you're wearing these polyester nylon plastic outfits, it can cause developmental issues in the child. The microplastics and the chemicals, the reason they call them forever chemicals is because they accumulate inside of you and don't go away, and they accumulate in the environment and they don't degrade. It takes thousands and thousands of years to degrade.
I was minding my business, wasn't none of your business. Sticking your nose where you know it don't belong.
Look at everyone filming, man.
E alienígena não tem.
Como?
Alienígena.
Alienígena? O que é?
Nunca, essa palavra você nunca ouviu falar? Alienígena.
Alienígena, não. Isso chama-se Mayushibu.
Isso aqui?
Sim.
Mancunawabu.
Mancunawabu.
Sério?
Mancunawabu. Mancunawabu é um que mora debaixo da terra.
É, eu falei, esse aí.
Que se virou formiga, hoje que nós chamamos Una. Que é uma formiga grande, chama-se Mancunawabu.
Que essa formiga também é muito perigoso, né, Boina? Se as pessoas ficam mexendo com ela demais, ela leva o espírito da pessoa para debaixo da terra também. Para voltar tem que ser um pajé bem bom.
São seres que pode aparecer em luz divina, com a luz do Nishipan. São seres que a gente pode ter o contato, que moram debaixo da terra.
Wait, so you're telling me that back in the day, when a mom and dad would split up, they would only give the dad every other weekend?
Yeah.
And people in those societies just accepted that as normal?
Uh-huh.
but every other weekend is only like 20% of the year. Right. I mean, that also means that by the time the kid is 10, they've effectively lost 8 entire years with their dad. I mean, yeah, that's true. Didn't they know the damage of fatherlessness? Oh yeah, they had access to that information since like the 80s. They knew that kids raised without fathers were about 4 times more likely to experience anxiety and depression, drop out of school, end up in jail, end up addicted to drugs, so much more.
Yeah, all right, the main characteristic of the ghetto is isolation. All right, physically, the ghetto is created to be isolated from the rest of society. All right, its own quarter, where back in the days when it was first created, they would draw bridges, all sorts of stuff. So once you were in the ghetto, you couldn't get out. All right, in many ways, we have our invisible walls around the ghetto today. So that's one thing. The other part that I think I try to emphasize in the book is that people within the ghetto itself, they're isolated from one another. Right? You live in a building, you never talk to the person next door. You don't know what's going on down the street. So the real high sense of isolation is the biggest characteristic. So how do you have healthy relationships in an environment like that? Even within the family itself, within one unit, how do you have relationships with one family with another, or one street with another? All right, really have some sense of community in the ghetto. That's the biggest problem, the isolation. And people know that. I mean, people who live in these environments have the sense that we're not supposed to be connected with the outside world, or we're not good enough to be connected with each other. So isolation is the greatest characteristic of the ghetto, physically, mentally, spiritually, in some sense. That's the main thing. It was created for that, to isolate its inhabitants from the rest of society.
I would like to point this out, Mr. Rustin. If you have 100 people who work for you for nothing for a week, you make a profit. If you have 1 million people who work for you for nothing for a year, you become wealthy. Well, then when you have millions of black people whom you can work for nothing for 310 years, you can easily see why America became the wealthiest and the most powerful country on earth faster than any country in history. But here you have 20 million black people today whose parents were worked for 310 years for nothing. What do they have coming for them? Not only did their parents work 310 years for nothing like an animal, but their parents also were the most faithful soldiers that the master had. What payment have they gotten? And today, they're not asking for much. They're not asking for what someone else would ask. Instead of asking for something that's real, they're asking their master to let them occupy one of the rooms in his house, or one of the rooms with him in his house. Now, this is still not asking for something. If America gave the black man here half of this country, they wouldn't be giving us anything. They worked our mothers and fathers for 310 years with no pay. The Senate, the Congress, and the U.S. Supreme Court found it necessary to appropriate funds to repay billions of dollars to the Indians for land that was taken from the Indians.
Russell, in the best of all possible worlds, what would you want to see for the Indian tribes? Okay, freedom, but what? Better education, better colleges?
Freedom. That's it. Freedom from the United States of America and our right to sit at the table of the family of nations.
Be a little more specific, beginning with, when you say freedom, freedom to move off, I mean, you can move off the reservation.
Freedom from the United States of America. Yes, we can move off the reservation, and unfortunately, we're like the refugees of Vietnam, of Mexico, of Cuba. We are forced to leave because of economic reasons. No Indian would leave our home base if we could viably live there economically. We cannot. We live in enforced poverty. So consequently, we're refugees in our own country. We want freedom. Now, not all of us. There are going to be a lot of Indian reservations that want to keep their hands out and be dependent on the federal government, but not my people. And I'm confident that my reservation and maybe a few others would opt for freedom and the human dignity that goes with it.
So if they're black and they can't prove that they have Indian blood, go away.
Basically, that's what we're saying.
Harsh words from the Seminole chief for the 2,000 black members of this mixed Indian tribe. In response, they say they're just as much Seminole as he is.
I fished in these woods, I hunted in these woods, I went to stomp dances just like the regular Seminoles did. And I never knew I was any different for a long time.
On any given Sunday, go with Loretta Guest to the Indian Baptist Church in Seminole County, Oklahoma, and you'll find red and black Seminoles praying together, singing hymns in Seminole, sharing meals and catching up on tribal news.
Hi, dog.
Walk with her through the Indian cemetery out back, and you'll find their ancestors are buried together as well.
My aunt is next to him.
Were there any distinctions made as to, you all are the black Seminoles, we're nice to you, but you're the black Seminoles?
No, nothing like that. We've always been treated as one to another.
Today, America's longest Native American political prisoner is having his parole hearing. Leonard Peltier, member of the American Indian Movement and political activist, has spent the last 49 years of his life behind bars for a crime that he did not commit. Leonard Peltier is an indigenous activist who is currently serving 2 life sentences for aiding and abetting, resulting in the murder of 2 FBI agents. But here's the kicker. The 2 people that he was claimed for aiding and abetting were found not guilty of murder. In order to understand how this all happened, we have to explain a little bit of the circumstance of this entire incident. What people don't know is that prior to 1978, indigenous ceremony and ritual was actually outlawed in the United States. Ceremonial practices were a federal offense that could land you in the federal penitentiary. You could literally go to jail for praying. And it wasn't until 1978, during the American Indian Freedom of Religion Act, that this was later banished. But up until this point, illegal. And this was all during the height of the civil rights movement taking place in the United States. And many indigenous people were going back to their traditional practices. In order to stop this, many governmental functions started hiring outside mercenaries and muscle to intimidate and in a lot of cases kill those who were practicing traditional beliefs. A lot of this taking place in the state of South Dakota. These people started calling themselves the Guardians of the Oglala Nation, also known as the Goon Squad. And during this time, extreme violence took place on native reservations.
Now then, COVID is back in the news.
Are you hearing people are quite nervous about getting the vaccine?
One of the professors who worked in the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine is a paediatrician who is one of the most intelligent, sensible and honest people I know. And I spoke to him. I was lucky enough to speak to him because I worked in a documentary that looked at the Oxford vaccine. And you know what? There is no conspiracy. There is no fake news.
The AstraZeneca COVID vaccine is being withdrawn worldwide after the pharmaceutical giant admitted it causes a rare and dangerous side effect.
Government had no capacity to enforce any of this. You must wear a mask. And people wore masks in New York. But if they said, I'm not wearing a mask, there was nothing I could do about it.
Masks have been mandatory since April, and a fine for not wearing one took effect this week.
It was really all voluntary. Wear a mask. It is the law, and the law is the law.
People who have got conspiracy, maybe anti-vax views, who believe now that they were deliberately misled over these vaccines. They've been developed quickly because we've sped up the process to make it more efficient. We've still had all the safety checks in place. That has not been compromised.
AstraZeneca admits its COVID vaccine can cause rare blood clots.
Based on all the information we had, there was not enough to say that it was down to the vaccine.
Dr. Marco Cavallari, head of anti-infectives and vaccines for the EMA, told the Italian newspaper Il Messaggero, quote, "It is becoming more and more difficult to affirm that there isn't a cause and effect relationship between AstraZeneca vaccines and the very rare cases of blood clots associated with a low level of platelets."
You know, you talk about cancel culture and who to shame. Ivermectin, a dewormer, really?
They are shaming themselves. No one has to shame them. They're shaming themselves.
No, they need to be shamed.
Yeah.
They need to be called out and shamed, brother. I am taking a regular dose of ivermectin. Ivermectin was a boogeyman early on in COVID.
You couldn't talk about it.
That was wrong. We were given bad information about ivermectin. You're going to question the vaccine, but you want to take a horse dewormer.
Those clots happen for lots of other reasons, and they weren't happening at a higher rate than we would expect at that time.
Germany, France, Spain and Italy are all taking the precautionary measure of suspending use of the vaccine because of fears about possible side effects, including blood clots. The AstraZeneca vaccine has already been suspended in the Netherlands, Ireland, Iceland, Bulgaria, Denmark and Norway.
And it was extraordinary when you think about it, that society acted with that uniformity voluntarily. Wear a mask. It is the state law. It's not an option.
It's okay to be afraid of COVID, and it's okay that it's dominating your life.
Everyone should be afraid of COVID.
Listen to the scientists.
Science is truth.
You know, science is truth. What is the impact to public health when people are openly questioning the science? Now is the time to do what you're told.
When we poke ya, well, we know you're gonna be safe from COVID infecting you. When you go out, yeah, I know you're gonna hug and not worry, it might kill you. And we will shoot 500 vials and we will stick 500 more just to be the vax who shoots 500 vials. What are you waiting for?
That when I see somebody out in the world who's not wearing a mask, I instantly think you are a threat, or you are selfish, or you are a COVID denier, and you definitely haven't been vaccinated.
I am triple vaccinated.
So why are you wearing a mask?
Listen to scientists. Listen to the scientists.
Trust the experts.
We're going to trust science. We're going to trust the experts.
Trust that vaccine.
Trust the experts. Listen to the medical experts.
Trust the expert.
This isn't about freedom. It's about freedom for your neighbors.
You can give each other a hug as long as everyone is fully vaccinated.
Did you know that German high school students learn about U.S. propaganda in their English courses in high school?
Yeah, and American history textbooks are straight up propaganda, and I could tell you how they did it. After World War I, the Carnegie and Rockefeller Foundations didn't want Americans to go back to an anti-war mindset. George Washington had warned Americans to stay out of foreign entanglements in his farewell address. So these foundations attempted to bribe America's 4 leading historians. They got rejected. No problem. They handpicked 20 college students and flew them to London, gave them $400,000 in student grants. Fast forward 10 years, those 20 students made up the governing board of the American Historical Association, who at the time had massive influence over what went into history textbooks, as well as the training that future history teachers would get. And although the agenda might have changed, they've had control of American history textbooks for generations now.
Am I the only one who didn't know this? Beginning in the 1930s, hundreds of children born from white moms and black dads were tracked down by police, forcibly sterilized, and later unwillingly became the subjects of medical experiments. Others simply vanished. And in 2022, a well-known black father with 4 children by a white woman named Kim defends the man who secretly ordered these abuses, saying he, quote, sees good things in him. Between 1918 and 1933, after World War I and before Nazi rule, Western Germany was occupied by victorious Allied troops, which included black soldiers from French colonies such as Senegal. Black Americans also immigrated to Germany during this time to enjoy freedoms not available to them in the States, such as freely eating at restaurants, staying in hotels, and going to the theater. Romantic relationships soon formed between blacks and whites, but Germany wasn't having it. In an effort to thwart these relationships, they introduced racist fake news depicting blacks as savages, murderers, and rapists who carried STDs and other communicable illnesses. The children of black soldiers and white German women were called Rhineland bastards, and their mothers considered whores a white disgrace. As early as 1923, government authorities began registering Afro-German kids along with their photographs and measurements. In 1937, upon Hitler's orders, the Gestapo pulled Afro-German kids from school, stole them from the streets, and bundled them into vans to take them to medical facilities to be sterilized. Some 437 cases were documented, while the number of unreported cases was closer to 800. Not gonna lie, U.S. history and Nazi Germany low-key feel like we're cousins.
And they use some mRNA, which is a messenger part of DNA. They take your particular cancer, they biopsy it, they take some of the protein on your cancer and they put it back into your cells, and they tell your cells to make that protein. The idea is that your body then makes antibodies against it. It gets the memory cells, the T cells, the ones we heard about lots in COVID. And so then, after you've been treated for your cancer, if any of those cells are still floating around, or if any of them start to come back and multiply, your own immune system will recognize them from that vaccine and kill it.
So Dr. Crippen, give it to me in a nutshell. Well, the premise is quite simple. Take something designed by nature and reprogram it to make it work for the body rather than against it. We're talking about a virus. Indeed, yes, in this case, the measles virus, which has been engineered at a genetic level to be helpful rather than harmful.
Christopher Columbus in his journal said about the Indians, they are so naive and so free with their possessions that no one who has not witnessed them would believe it. When you ask for something they have, they never say no. To the contrary, they offer to share with anyone. And he wrote that in his journal, mocking them. Because he came from a land full of the worst kinds of people. And so coming in contact with human beings that were so open to sharing and caring and loving was to be mocked.
Message! How can just some LNP and mod RNA create that variety of adverse events? It's like, well, buddy, this stuff isn't just going into the cytoplasm, it's going into the nucleus and disrupting the activity of DNA, the blueprint for life.
And all over the body as well.
That's right.
Systemic distribution.
Why didn't they just, instead of DNA and mod RNA, why didn't they just make the spike protein itself? Why did
as they did in China? No one in China's had an mRNA vaccine.
That's right. They didn't. Why did people get injected with mod RNA when they only needed to give us the final product, the actual spike protein encapsulated?
And why did the Chinese government have sufficient insight to import, as far as I know, 0 doses of mRNA vaccine and to use their own antigen vaccine?
The population only perhaps needed spike protein, but it didn't even need to be wrapped in a lipid nanoparticle and biodistributed. It only needed to be in a nasal spray in terms of delivery mechanism.
Did you ever fry an egg on a cold stove? It's no trick at all if you have the right equipment. This is a cold hot plate. And because it's cold, you can make it out of wood, if you like. Just be sure that there's a coil of wire inside and that you connect that coil to a high voltage alternating current source. The rest is easy. As long as we're being different, we'll use motor oil instead of Crisco. The egg fries very quickly, but the stove remains perfectly cold. In fact, if you wish, just to keep it handy, you can fry your egg on the morning newspaper. With a gadget like this, you can get up in the morning, sit on the stove, read the morning newspaper, and fry the eggs in your lap.
This device right here has sent me down the deepest rabbit hole, and that's because this is a source of free energy that has a very mysterious history and could be linked to UFOs.
But for several years now, a small group of scientists here has been investigating a strange new space-age metal, a nickel-titanium alloy called nitinol.
In cold water, nitinol turns soft. Bend it and it stays bent, but in hot water it springs back with forces as high as 55 tons a square inch. No one knows quite why this happens. Several years ago, McDonnell Douglas began experimenting with nitinol in the form of springs. At room temperature, the nitinol wire springs bend easily, but in warm water they spring back, thus forcing the wheel around. Even stranger, nitinol wires get stronger the more they're used. They develop a double memory. They not only contract in the warm water, but they begin to stretch of their own accord in the cool water. Nitinol can be trained.
And then there's this document that was written from the Battelle Memorial Institute to the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio in 1949. And of course, the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is known for allegedly storing the crashed UFO that happened in Roswell in 1947, which was just 2 years before this contract was written. And in this document, they're talking about the different alloys that they're testing, and they're giving a progress report on those tests. And at this time, nitinol went by a different name. And a lot of the serious UFO researchers believe that the Battelle Memorial Institute was the organization that was given the contract to examine and test all the metals that were retrieved from the Roswell crash. And one more interesting thing about Battelle is that they are the same organization that invented coating and metals that were used on spy planes.
It just gets more bizarre.
as we go on. When you create these vortexes, you start this spiral motion inside the sphere, and then it travels down. So you got an outer cylinder and an inner cylinder. And one vortex is inside the outer, but outside the inner. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Then the next vortex going in the opposite direction, and the opposite spin is inside the next cylinder.
Okay.
Now, in order to transition from, I can show you this on here, because I got photographs of all the components, how they fit together, videos of them being assembled in the machine shops, right here on this laptop, so you can see it. You can't, like if you have a sphere and you just cut a round hole in it, you stick a cylinder onto it, it's got this sharp edge, and that would induce turbulence that would affect this coherent, organized vortex that forms. So you have to have a transition between the cylinder and the sphere to prevent that turbulence from being introduced. Experimentation has shown that one angle seems to be optimum for minimizing the introduction of the turbulence. What do you think that angle is? 51.84 degrees. Slope to base of Khufu's pyramid. Another coincidence? I don't know. But that leads me to think, okay, I've suspected all along that these pyramids and these structures are part of an ancient technological system. Probably somewhat along the lines of the principles of Nikola Tesla, right? Who was able to generate energy.
Why did the government keep this a secret? Back in the 1850s, the Grand Canyon was used to mine gold. When people started mining it, the gold index crashed because they found so much gold there. The government and military closed off the area, making it a protected sanctuary to prevent unauthorized access, including the theft of gold. There was this one guy. His name was Seth Tanner, and he was an explorer. He discovered many ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics in a cave. Since the lost city of El Dorado wasn't found or discovered yet, he made a point that the lost city of El Dorado could actually be beneath the Grand Canyon, including its legendary gold. This discovery suggests that the entire city remains undiscovered. The government is keeping this discovery a secret because they're worried that if it gets out, it could mess up the gold market by bringing in a lot of new gold all at once. Or even worse, people breaking into the Grand Canyon to steal gold. That could explain why they put big metal doors at every entrance.
Bumblebee can't fly aerodynamically. Yeah, and he's right. And I said, well, what did bumblebees do? And they said, well, they levitate. And I said, well, how's that? And he says, come on, I'll show you. And he showed me. He wrote a book, incidentally. I don't know if it's still in print. It's in the Library of Congress. The book is called Tomorrow's Energy Need Not Be Fuel. And in that book, he gave reference to what I'm talking about, that of levitation. The bumblebee, when he starts to beat his wings, when he starts to flap his wings, there's a little cavity, a hollow cavity next to the larynx inside his system that's hollow. And when he beats his wings, he starts to resonate this energy, and it goes back and forth, just similar to a guitar strumming on one side of the room and hitting the same chord on the other side of the room, or somebody hitting a high C and breaking a crystal. It's the same thing. It's resonance. And he said what they do, they resonate. And when they resonate, they eventually reach the resonance of the field around them.
They now have magnetic chicken inside the stores. I can't make this up, bro. So this lady went inside the store and she grabbed a magnet and she just tested her chicken on some great value chicken inside of Wally World. And guess what? It's magnetic. But I can't make this up, boy. When have y'all ever known chicken to be magnetic? And we already know that magnets stick to metal, so what metal particles are inside the chicken? I'm just asking. Don't y'all find that like interesting? That somehow, some way, that all of a sudden out of nowhere, now there's chicken that's magnetic.
Pfizer marketed its vaccine as safe for pregnant women. However, in February of 2021, Pfizer possessed reports for 458 pregnant women who received Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine during pregnancy. More than half of the pregnant women reported an adverse event, and more than 10% reported a miscarriage, many within days of the vaccination. Pfizer also possessed information from its own October 2020 study on pregnancy in rats, indicating that its COVID-19 vaccine was likely linked to infertility, loss of litters, and stillborn offspring. Number two, safety relating to heart conditions like myocarditis. Pfizer consistently denied any evidence of a connection or safety signal between its COVID-19 vaccine and myocarditis or pericarditis. Indeed, on January 18th, 2023, when asked whether its vaccine caused strokes or myocarditis, Pfizer chairman and CEO Alan Berla stated, quote, "We've not seen a single signal, although we have distributed billions of doses," end quote. A signal that he was referring to as a safety signal, which refers to a negative consequence. However, as Pfizer knew, the United States government, the United States military, foreign governments, and others had found that Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine caused myocarditis and pericarditis. Number 3, effectiveness regarding variants. Pfizer also claimed that its COVID-19 vaccine protected against COVID-19 variants, even though data available at the time showed Pfizer's vaccine was effective less than half the time against variants. Finally, transmission. Pfizer urged Americans to get vaccinated in order to protect their loved ones, clearly indicating a claim that Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccination stopped transmission of COVID-19. Pfizer later admitted that it had never even studied transmission of it after its recipients received the vaccine and whether they could say it stopped transmission. After making these misleading statements, Pfizer also engaged in some censorship attempts. Emails reveal that Pfizer officials coordinated with social media platforms to censor any speech critical of Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine safety and effectiveness. It should also be noted that Pfizer elected not to join the federal government's vaccine development program known as Operation Warp Speed and declined that development funding. When asked about that, Pfizer's CEO, Albert Bourla, said Pfizer did not participate in the program in order to, quote, liberate, end quote, Pfizer's scientists and to avoid government oversight of its vaccine development. He also said, quote, "They want reports. I don't want to have any of that," end quote. Referring to they, when he said they, he was referring to the federal government. Pfizer's misleading statements contributed to success in marketing its vaccine in Kansas. By February of 2024, Pfizer had delivered over 3.3 million doses of its vaccine in the state of Kansas. This accounted for over 60% of all vaccine doses given in the state of Kansas. This suit is being filed today, and as I mentioned before, it is part of a multi-state effort in which more suits may follow depending on Pfizer's reaction.
All right, let me get this straight, because I'm a little slow. MSG in food, bad. MSG in vaccines, good. Aluminum in deodorant, bad. Aluminum in vaccines, good. Right? I have this right? Yeah. Glyphosate on food, bad. Glyphosate in vaccines, good. Formaldehyde in building materials, bad. Formaldehyde in vaccines, good. Mercury in fish, bad. Mercury vaccines, good. I think I got all that right.
You're gonna do your drawing and hold it close to your chest, so not even your partners can see. You're gonna do it as quickly as possible. Look at me. Take a deep breath, everyone. Do your drawing now, quickly, and hold it close to your chest.
LeBron James scored.
Hold it close to your chest, so nobody can see. So nobody can see. Now, listen, spontaneously. You, listen carefully. Did I tell you what to draw? No. Did I give instructions to you to do a specific drawing? This is from your choices, correct? Yeah. Correct. It's really from their minds. Just for fun. You, do we know each other personally? No, and you seem to be very happy about it, by the way. Can you show us what you did? Just show me your drawing. Just show me your drawing. This is interesting. And all the way over there with the glasses. Yes, you who hold it. Can you turn yours? What is this? This is interesting. God. This is a coincidence. Harry, look. Can you show me yours? Show me yours. Look at this. All the way, I don't know, all the way next to him, the blonde girl. Can you turn yours, please? This is very strange.
Come on, man.
You know what? Turn your drawings now. Look at this.
Wait.
Look at this. Oh my, I am in shock. But you know what's the beautiful? You know.
I'm out.
Come out. You know.
I'm out.
You know what's more beautiful than this, that I managed to influence 200 people to do the exact same thing. I will give you a little hint. Look at the band. They're all doing the stuff. Harry, come here. God. The way I did it was a subtle influencing, because this is not a Superman sign. This is an S. This is not a cross, this is a T. This is not a mountain, this is an A. And this is not a rabbit, it's an R upside down, which gives us a star, which is exactly what you thought of.
Of course, the black box from the ship that hit that bridge is missing 2 minutes of sensor data and steering inputs. Why wouldn't it? And of course, the ship managed to somehow defy the laws of physics. If you're unaware of what I'm talking about, go ahead and put your tinfoil hat on and follow me. But we have 2 new revelations about that ship hitting the bridge. The first is what Gen Z would refer to as sus. But the second thing is impossible. So let me give you the sus shit first. So they recovered the black box from the ship. They recovered the black box completely intact, because why wouldn't they? The ship didn't fucking sink. Then the NTSB informed us that 2 minutes is missing. And it just so happens to be the 2 minutes leading up to the crash. Even though, as we all know, a black box is supposed to have a backup power supply so you never stop recording. But nevertheless, some very strategic 2 minutes is just fucking gone. And the sad part is, that's the more reasonable part of the 2 things we just found out. Like, the second thing is not just sus, it's impossible. So here's a very short clip of what the NTSB just said.
27 and 4 seconds. The pilot ordered the Dali to drop the port anchor.
If you don't know anything about ships and boats, that might not sound that fucked up to you. So let me just show you. You heard him say that they dropped the port anchor. And the port side of a ship is the left side. Let's all have a basic understanding of physics here for a second. They dropped the anchor off the left side of this fucking ship. How the fuck did this ship turn right? That's not possible.
Like anyone growing up in Israel, I went through the whole indoctrination mechanism. And we're being trained to be soldiers from kindergarten. Literally from kindergarten. The moment I realized I managed to sort of overcome that indoctrination, then everything became very clear, because the situation is crystal clear. One of the main successes of Israeli propaganda is to convince the world that the situation is complicated. But it's far from being complicated. It's probably the least complicated conflict in the world today. And it's all about basically those who have the power, those who oppress and subjugate and tread over the indigenous people of the land who have been oppressed and subjugated and expelled from their land. And this is what it's about. The situation here is not very different other than the way it is perceived in the world and among Israeli society themselves. They like to perceive themselves as being something else, as being, liberal and progressive and all of that. And I also thought of myself as such until I realized that actually, this is not the case. The case is very clear, and I'm not on the right side of history. And that's when, the moment I managed to overcome this type of brainwashing, then the rest was very easy. The State of Israel is all about creating a place which is for one select group and only that. It's not only the fact that they wanted to take over, to usurp the land and the resources and all of that. It's also about this exclusive nature of the place, that this is ours and only ours. And even any Palestinian being born in Israel, even if they're Israeli citizens, is already regarded as some sort of a threat to the state. The need to segregate, the need to separate and not to interact with Palestinians is part of Israeli identity. So we have to understand that Israeli identity depends on denying Palestinian identity and denying either the existence of Palestinians altogether or at the very least denying their identity, their culture and so on. And also, right after the ethnic cleansing of Palestine, right after the Palestinians were expelled from their homes and became refugees, the very next thing that happened was that there was a concerted effort of mass looting of books and other cultural artifacts from Palestinian homes, which was led by the National Library in Israel. So it's for a reason that when we say existence is resistance for Palestinians, this is true. Just by very existing on their land, this is an act of resistance in itself. Even more so when they actually claim their rights, claim their identity, do cultural work, like produce Palestinian culture, that is an act of war.
There is no evidence that the vaccinations increase your risk of clots. COVID significantly increases your risk of clots. You've got to remember that. So getting COVID is bad news. And if you're clot prone, it's especially bad news.
AstraZeneca admits COVID vaccine can cause rare side effect.
They're currently admitted in court for the first time that the COVID jab can cause a deadly blood clotting side effect, Sonia.
Can you tell you've got a blood clot?
So the signs and symptoms of this particular type of blood clot, so it's a very unique, so it's called vaccine-induced thrombocytopenia, which is a reduction in platelets, so low platelets, which means you're more likely to bleed. Platelets help with clotting. Thrombosis, which is the blood clot, but it tends to affect the vein that drains blood from the vein that drains blood from the brain.
Yeah.
So
Zoe, I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to stop you there. This always happens to us. We've got to go to the weather. Sorry about that.
What can a good woman bring to a man?
Nothing. A woman shouldn't bring nothing to a man. You have to understand that the woman is a mirror and a multiplier. She will mirror you. She will reflect you, and she will multiply whatever you put upon her. So if you put wealth upon a good woman, watch how she multiplies it. If you give love to a good woman, watch how she multiplies it. If you give a home to a good woman, a house to a good woman, food to a good woman, watch how she nurtures you with this. The problem is these men are toxic. So when they looking at the woman, their reflection, when they're unable to put things on the table, they say, oh, this woman ain't good. Oh, this woman ain't submissive. Oh, this woman don't listen. No, brother, she is mirroring you. And she's showing you that you lay nothing on her table but anxiety, stress, depression, and chaos. And now she's multiplying that. Now you're in your feelings. No, man, a good woman brings nothing to a table but herself, because she is the mirror and the multiplier.
Aren't men more likely to be manipulated through sex?
Oh, yeah. Men only think about sex, so they're very manipulated. Women dominate it.
So then why aren't men protected from emotional abuse the same way women are protected from physical abuse?
Because men are idiots. No, emotional is worse. No. Emotional is worse than physical. It is.
So then if emotional is worse than physical,
Yes, the
wouldn't
men-
men deserve protection more than women?
They would. They should. But they're not smart enough to fight for it.
falseness we live in as women is believing that we have high emotional intelligence. And setting the record straight, women have no emotional intelligence. The reason that as women we want to believe we have emotional intelligence is because we are emotional. Because we are emotional, as women, we want to think we have high emotional intelligence. But the truth is the fact that we are highly emotional is actually the biggest indicator that we have very low emotional intelligence, because being emotional is having no control over our emotional state, which is low emotional intelligence. High emotional intelligence is the ability to be pragmatic, to see things realistically, and to make choices and respond to life not from an emotional place. It's the ability to be in control of our emotional state and operate in life from that place.
I actually have found that I think men are more likely to have bizarrely unrealistic expectations. I have so many girlfriends who are highly accomplished, highly educated, great people, and just wonderful women. And the dating pool is absolutely brutal for them.
What are these men looking for?
It is entirely unclear to me that it's like, why are their men not jumping to want to date them? So if
Well, Alicia, those are not bizarre and unrealistic expectations, because reality is that ultimately men want to build a family, okay? And most men don't want to be with an accomplished and educated woman because those women are entitled, demanding, and a pain to deal with. Even different studies would tell you that that's the case. So Most of your accomplished and educated friends are very likely to end up with a cat instead of a family, just like Whoopi.
When you get there, does he have his Batman mask on?
Most times, if he doesn't, he looks like that.
Okay. And he has a Batman suit.
He does.
Does he wash this suit?
No. It has coffee, beer, sweat. The inside of his Batman mask is absolutely disgusting.
Right there.
You said he has a fungus growing from the
Yeah,
suit?
you can see white patches on the top of his head. That's not like a sun.
Whites have long hair, blacks have short curly hair. What is the reason for that? Black's hair, your follicle, my follicle, is not round, it's flat, like a ribbon. So you know how Christmas you rub your hand on the ribbon and it curls up? Well, that's the way our hair do. White hair is like a soda straw, it's round, so it hangs. What is the purpose for that? All of the main arteries that take the messages and information from the brain to the rest of the body pass through the human neck. So if you're caught in an ice age, you've got to grow enough hair to shield the neck, to insulate the neck. Otherwise, you're gonna die. Same thing with the nostrils. When you're in the sun of Africa, you need these big nostrils we have because you gotta cool the brain down. But if you're in Europe and all that ice, you don't want to cool the brain down. So you need a smaller nostril bridge so you can warm the air up that's coming in. They say the no cruising and no U-turn signs were put up in the 1990s to prevent people in the gay community from meeting up with other gay people.
These U-turn signs were still up. And at first, they seem a little, oh, okay, it's just a no U-turn sign. But when you learn the history of it and you realize that these were used to profile gay people, it's so important that we have these removed.
The LA City Council members say the signs were put up after the gay community began to grow and because there was a gay bar in that area.
Jesus is a metaphor for the sun. And so boiling it down, Christianity is sun worship based on astrology, because nobody owns the sun. So obviously the sun belongs to God. So it's God's sun, and he's the light of the world. Of course the sun's the light of the world. What else lights the world if it's not the sun? And he has 12 helpers. Of course, the 12 signs of the zodiac, the 12 months of the year. He is our risen Savior. Of course, it rises every morning about 5:30. And the sun is your Savior. If it don't come up, we're dead. So once you start breaking down the symbols in the Old and the New Testament, you begin to see that Christianity is basically astrology and sun worship. But it has been so well hidden and so cleverly disguised. And once you start breaking it down and reading the whole story, it becomes overwhelmingly obvious this is what we're talking about. He has a virgin birth. He's born of a virgin, of course. Virgin birth because one of the constellations of the zodiac is Virgo, Virgo the Virgin. This is why Judas gives Jesus the kiss of death, because Judas represents Scorpio, and Scorpio gives the God's son, the light of the world, the kiss of death.
Gavi said in 2021 that bird flu is the next disease X. And now World Economic Forum, WHO, CEPI, the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovation, CDC, all have bird flu positioned as disease X. That is the next pandemic. And they are doing everything they can through messaging to raise public awareness as well as fear, Alex. What we know is highly pathogenic avian influenza, H5N1 influenza, the current clade or specific strain is 2.3.446b. So we got it down to exactly what it is. What we've learned, Alex, is this is a version of this that was gain of function research. Gain of function research doing what's called serial passage, that is keep trying over and over again to pass the virus and to make it more dangerous.
Completely unfamiliar with child sex dolls. So I had, of course, to Google it last night. I was a little scared to put it in my search engine, but I did. And apparently, there is research on the subject. There are what they call MAPs, minor attracted persons. And the limited amount of research that's done on these dolls, guys, suggests that they actually, for people who are attracted to minors, that these dolls actually decrease their proclivity to go out and attack children, that it actually gives them a release that makes them less likely to go outside of their home, gives them a release.
Oh, so if you let a pedophile fake like they're banging a child, you know, create a doll that looks very lifelike, like an actual kid, you know, like one of their neighbor's kids or like one of your kids, then they are less likely to actually go attack your kid. You know what other types of things stop them from touching kids? Huh? I can think of like 30.
But the research that is out there is conclusive.
Aren't you glad we're being inclusive of every type of person in the world? Diversity is our strength.
That the number one problem in Hollywood was and is and always will be pedophilia. That's the biggest problem for children in this industry.
The casting couch even applies to children.
Oh yeah. Not in the same way. It's all done under the radar.
Nobody talks about pedophilia.
It's the big secret.
And it's widespread?
Oh yeah. I was surrounded by them when I was 14 years old. Surrounded. Literally. Didn't even know it. It wasn't until I was old enough to realize what they were and what they wanted and what they were about and the types of people that were surrounding me till I went, oh my God, they were everywhere like vultures.
You believe that children are being abused by pedophiles in Hollywood.
Absolutely.
So why are you sitting down talking to me? Why aren't you sitting down with the police right now?
I've told the police. In fact, if anybody wants to go back to 1993 when I was interviewed by the Santa Barbara Police Department, I sat there and I gave them the names. They're on record. They have all of this information, but they were scanning Michael Jackson. All they cared about was trying to find something on Michael Jackson.
Who you said, by the way, did not abuse you.
Who Michael was innocent, and that was what the interview was about with the police in 1993. I told them he is not that guy, and they said, well, maybe you just don't understand your friend. And I said, no, I know the difference between pedophiles and somebody who's not a pedophile because I've been molested. Here's the names. Go investigate. And let me push this forward. There are thousands of people in Hollywood who have this same information. Why is it all on me? Why is it if I don't release the names in the next...
Such a good movie. All right, man, you guys take it easy. What is it? Are you just having some fun, drinking out of the wells of Babylon? Watching a little movie that the CIA paid him a little tip to put in some propaganda, you know, so that you can find out ahead of time what the government's going to do, so that when the government actually does it, since you've already seen a movie, all of your emotions that should show up when you find out they're doing really, really sick shit actually don't show up because you're like, I've already seen this movie. Of course they're doing that. They know what they're doing. Yeah. Like they did with the Avengers when they told you about Operation Paperclip. Right, when they brought all the Nazis over here to help us with our rocket program. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Enjoying the embers of a dying empire, huh? Yeah, I was just trying to have some fun. Well, you don't get to have fun! Okay, I know.
As soon as she got my pants off me, she started like jerking the ween. And I'm like, whoa, you know, that's not gonna work. You know, what are you doing? And then the next thing I know, keep in mind, this is a big Sasquatch.
Let me show you how backward capitalism is. It's a backward system. We could make two statements about capitalism to show how backward it is. About America. America's a capitalist country. It's thoroughly capitalist. It's an imperialist country. But we could say that, number one, America is the most technologically advanced country in the world. And that's an undeniable fact. It's a truism. It's a truism. America is the most scientifically developed country in the world. And right under that, we could say a second fact, which will show you how backward America is. We could say that America, in 1945, made for her people better cars than she does in 1973. And if you analyze this, you'll see how vicious the system is, because here's America with its great technological skills, its great scientific ability, and rather than making a safe car for people that will last 20 years, which they can do with the scientific knowledge that's at their fingertip, they rather take this knowledge and build a car which will break down every 2 years, so you're forced to buy another car. Thus, you see, under capitalism, what they do is they take their scientific skills, and rather than using it for the benefit of the people, they use it to further exploit the people. And certainly this type of system is too backward.
It's not just Diddy, it's like BlackRock and Vanguard. They actually own the music industry and control the music.
Wait. The investment houses of BlackRock and Vanguard, they own the music industry?
Absolutely. from Sony Music Group to they're the most invested in the music industry. They're the most through Viacom. They own BET, MTV, VH1. They're in control of the music industry, and they also own the overwhelming majority of stock in the private prison industry. I think the stock name is called CXW now. It's called Core Civic. It used to be called Corrections Corporations of America, and then they transitioned the name. And so this whole hip-hop deal was about creating a culture where, like, prison is a rite of passage.
Literally the same people who own the labels own private prisons.
But they didn't make you write those lyrics.
It's not about making somebody write the lyrics. It's about being there as guardrails to make sure certain songs make it through and certain songs don't.
You scored too high on the test. Despite the fact that I had, it showed that I had these, my instincts of protecting innocent, what I would put myself through my IQ was too high, and that proved to them that I'm more susceptible for corruption. This is what they said. And I knew people and the higher ups in the police department, and I'm like, is this for real? And they said, yeah, unfortunately it is. And as years went on with cops, I'd ask them, is this in all of the police departments? Google it. Google it.
I've seen that before.
It's even now, still. If your IQ is too high, you can't become a cop because you are not programmable. They say that you're not going to be challenged by this. I mean, this is personally like that. So when I see the dump that's happening, I'm not surprised.
The situation in the lobby was such that there was no doubt on what had happened. The fuel in the elevator shafts theory could never account for the powerful explosion that literally devastated the lobby of the North Tower 1 hour after the first impact and before the collapse of the South Tower.
There was a secondary explosion, probably a device either planted before or on the aircraft that did not explode until an hour later.
Then somebody said that they saw an airliner go into one of those towers. Then, I don't know, an hour later than that, we had that big explosion from much, much lower. I don't know what on earth caused that.
In fact, these firemen reported 3 large explosions in Tower 1, which took place after the plane's impact. They also confirmed it was the 3rd explosion to devastate the lobby of the tower.
It was an explosion. We was in the lobby and the 3rd explosion, the whole lobby collapsed on us.
What you told me is that there was a plane or whatever hit the building, then a secondary explosion.
It was like 3 explosions after that. We came in after the fire. We came when the fire was going on already. We was in the staging area inside the building, waiting to go upstairs. Then it exploded. The whole lobby collapsed on the lobby inside.
It took these witnesses about 1 hour to walk down from the 82nd floor to the lobby of the North Tower after the impact of the plane.
We got to the 4th floor from 82nd floor.
We stuck on the stairs for a while. We finally got down to the lobby. Then we get to the lobby. It was this big explosion. I don't know if
everything went
just like what you just seen. That's what we went through before we came out of the building. Then when we get out the building, then another smoke cloud came.
What happened? Yeah, they would, during the 1800s, early 1900s, white people would kidnap black kids in Florida and use black babies to bait alligators. They would tie black babies up and put them out in the swamps and let alligators eat them so they can capture the alligators. They have gator bait memorabilia in museums and stores, especially in Florida. They would do some real sick shit, man. They would do some real sick stuff out here.
So this deserves to be said again. Due to generational trauma,
Some people don't have elders. They have people in their family who have grown older, but not wiser. Quote by Nedra Tawwab.
These scientists are correct. About 25% of Florida would be flooded, along with low-lying areas all over the world.
For years, scientists have theorized about the dangers of the so-called greenhouse effect, the warming of the Earth's atmosphere due to the burning of coal and oil. And in recent months, as David Culhane reports, research has uncovered facts to support that theory.
Scientists claim that the temperature of the Earth's atmosphere has been rising over the past 100 years, that the great sheets of pack ice in Antarctica are melting at a much more rapid rate than previously. And finally, that the sea level has been rising with increasing swiftness over the past 40 years. If these scientists are correct, about 25% of Florida would be flooded, along with low-lying areas all over the world. Climate changes could produce widespread disruption of agriculture. The American farm belt might be too dry, and the wheat and corn crops would have to move to Canada. Scientists blame the odorless, colorless carbon dioxide gas for these potentially dangerous changes around the planet.
The billionaire owners of the wonderful company are trying to take over the lemon market with their seedless lemons. Owners Stuart and Linda Resnick bought the exclusive U.S. licenses and IP for 2 seedless lemon varieties. The couple hopes to gain a 25% control of the U.S. fresh lemon market with their exclusively licensed seedless lemons. This would remove the ability to regrow a lemon tree from the seed. The wonderful company also owns Halos, Fiji Water, Wonderful Pistachios, and Palm, and has come under heavy criticism for their intensive water use. The Resnicks started acquiring majority stakes in water right basins back in 1994 through a series of secret agreements and meetings. The Resnicks are longtime donors and close friends with a number of California politicians, including the late Dianne Feinstein, who advocated for them to have more water pumping rights. This is a perfect example of why we should look to support small and local farms over large corporations that control grocery store shelves.
Here's a story about chicken eggs that will show you exactly how corrupt the food industry is and how much the chemical industry influences it for profit. When eggs are produced in the United States, there's a sanitizer that's sprayed on them for the purpose of preventing you from getting salmonella poisoning and bacteria entering the egg, eventually spoiling it. Meanwhile, when a natural egg is produced, it has something on the outside called a bloom. This is why when you go to Europe, you see that eggs are actually not refrigerated. They're kept outside, whether in the store or at home. Why? Because the bloom protects the egg from having salmonella or bacteria enter the egg and spoiling it. So the egg already came with a natural defense against the thing that the chemicals are being sprayed on it to protect it against. The chemicals are absolutely unnecessary. Proof of it? Go to Portugal today and buy eggs from a shelf instead of a refrigerator, and your health will be just fine. Seek out pasture-raised organic eggs. You don't need the industrial toxins, and make sure you share this video with everyone you know so they can also do the same thing.
Ooh, your cheese nasty. I got a hack to make your cheese last for an extra 6 weeks. White vinegar, paper towel. Lightly soak it, cheese, fold, Ziploc bag. It won't taste any different. It just stops bacteria from growing so you can enjoy it longer. You're welcome.
इंडिया पाकिस्तान का मैच है घर पे बैठ के देख सकते हैं मुझे सड़कें खाली चाहिए कुछ हो जाओ चलो वर्ल्ड कप है
Grocery store secrets. Food storage tips your grocer won't tell you. 10. Stuff the shrimp into a mineral water bottle, then fill it up completely with water. Seal the bottle and freeze it in the refrigerator. This way, they can be preserved for a year without spoiling. 9. Stick a piece of tape on the bottom of tomatoes to lock in the moisture. They'll stay fresh for 3 weeks. 8. Bananas can spoil quickly after just a few days. Wash off the ripening agents on the peel with clean water. Dry with a paper towel. Then moisten another one and wrap it around the banana stem. Store it for as long as you wish, and it'll still be good to eat when you crave it. 7. Can't finish a watermelon? Storing it directly in the refrigerator can allow bacteria to grow. Place 2 fresh garlic cloves on either side of the watermelon, cover with plastic wrap, and then put it in the fridge. It'll remain fresh for several days. 6. Too much cabbage left over? Carve out the base of the cabbage, stuff it with a damp paper towel, then moisten the outside. This method will keep it fresh for half a month. 5. Wrap the roots of cilantro in a paper towel, dampen with water, and place in a glass. It'll stay fresh for a month. 4. Rice can get infested with pests over time. Put star anise and ginger in a pouch and place it in your rice container. Your rice will remain pest-free for a year. 3. Can't finish the green onions? Line them up on a paper towel, spritz with water, and roll them up to maintain root moisture. They'll stay fresh for half a month. 2. Ginger can mold if not stored properly. Place ginger in a glass jar, cover it with white sugar, and seal the lid. It won't spoil for 6 months.
It's a scam that's become so normalized that we don't even realize it's a scam anymore.
Black olives.
Black olives doesn't exist. I explain you. The black olives you see on pizza, they painted black. They chemically stained black. People think there's two different trees. There's the tree for green olives, there's the tree for black olives. It's exactly same tree. The olives starts green and during the process of maturation became black, darker and darker until it's black. But in order to have seedless olive, the olive has to be hard. And in order to be hard, the olive has to be green. Otherwise the machine doesn't work. So all the seedless olives you see in the can, in the pizza, everywhere, they are green olives, take the seed out, and then they are painted black chemically.
What goes in must come out. And if it doesn't, you're in trouble. And those of you going to the bathroom once a week, or every other day, or even once a day, if you're eating all day long, it's not enough. The turkey gobbler, this under here, I used to have that as a skinny little girl. Those are your organs prolapsing internally. You're not going to the bathroom enough. And you may think you're going if you're going once or twice a day, but here's the deal. If you're eating 3 meals a day, you should be making 3 times a day. If you're eating 5 times a day, you should be making 5 times a day. If you're not, where did it go and what's it doing? It isn't evaporating internally. Where did it go and what's it doing? What's staying in there, it's rotting, it's putrefying, it's making you have stinky breath, it's making you stinky armpits, all these smells and things are coming out of you, especially if you're eating a lot of meat and chicken, because I call that the dead cemetery syndrome. You know, you're walking around with a dead cemetery in here and all these smells are coming out of you.
It was proved at the turn of the century that the human body is almost 80%, 90% water, and it's also got electrolytes in it, which we know to be salt, potassium, different minerals. That means we're a salt battery. No different than the car battery, different than something like that. And there's a patent actually called the Cali patent, which I'll hold up here for the camera to see. And this patent actually was developed in 1897, and not much has been done with it because at that time everyone was afraid of electricity. In this case, Dr. Clark developed a product using a 9-volt battery. And I'll just show you in the back here. There it is, 9-volt battery. And this particular unit, you just snap on your wrist with 2 wristbands.
We'll have a minute. Yeah.
You snap it on your wrist just to prove that I'm a circuit. I push the little green light, and the thing is on. And if I put my hands together, you can hear that I'm a circuit, and I'm a closed circuit at this point. Now with
Why do we get a sound when you put your hands together?
Because I've closed the circuit. Now when I take my hands apart, obviously the electricity is now being able to flow through the body. The electricity can't go through the digestive tract, so in the digestive tract, to kill the microorganisms, the specific parasites, she's found the effectiveness of the black walnut, which the native Indians used for cleansing many years ago. The black walnut, in its green hull form, kills many of the microorganisms, and in conjunction with another product called wormwood, and cloves, typical cloves that you would get at the store, these 3 in combination have the ability to go in and kill all the pathogens. Now what's most interesting is the Mexican people have the lowest incidence of cancer anywhere on the planet. And the reason is they kill the ascaris with this particular product here, we all know to be the jalapeno pepper. And those seeds of the jalapeno pepper, only 10 or 15 seeds twice a day, have the ability to kill the ascaris, which she found to be a major cause of why the body loses oxygen at the tumor sites. And to kill that, you use the jalapeno seeds, and then you back that up with a little ozonated olive oil.
How are you so certain that each time you have...
We use scanning techniques and we do blood tests. You can tell if a tumor has shrunk or not. But I realized this kind of criticism would come along, and that's why I saved 50 sets of x-rays before and after and all the blood tests, and that's what I published in the last book.
Can someone explain to me why every time I get a booster, or no matter how many boosters I get, I'm on 9 now, that I always end up getting COVID anyways? Right now, I've got COVID and I'm not feeling great. And it scares me to think how bad I would feel if I hadn't had my booster, but I'm still feeling pretty crappy. So I don't really know, I can't really say, what benefit I'm getting because I've always had boosters in my life. But I'm tired, guys. I'm getting tired of the boosters of getting COVID over and over and doing the right thing, being responsible, but still having to deal with the consequences of getting sick.
A similar story here, the long descent from Tower 1 and the big explosion in the lobby.
It was like holy hell coming down them stairs. And then when we finally got to the bottom, they were coming out on the mezzanine level there, and another explosion came right from it, because everyone flying.
Yet another similar story.
Big boom, come down the steps, everything fine till we got to the basement, and then everything just fell in. I got trapped on there with another guy, crawled out, kept getting hit in the head, had bags all around. Finally, we clawed our way out over the rubble.
The situation in the lobby was such that there was no doubt on what had happened.
The ladies that are with me were in the World Trade Center in the first building and escaped through the lobby, where they believe there was a bomb in the lobby.
We ran down the steps to the lobby. There was no lobby. Everything was torn up.
We came outside in the lobby. There was no lobby. The lobby was totally gone.
Did you see other people?
There was a woman there with her face blown off.
Big glass lobby, and all the glass was broken. Wires hanging from the ceiling. The signs that would hang above telling you where to go were all hanging. It was unbelievably scary to look at.
Firefighter John Schroeder was climbing the stairs of Tower 1 when he heard the huge explosion from below.
We were heading up to the 24th floor of the stairwell, and all of a sudden our building got rocked. We got bounced around in the stairwell like pinballs, man. And we just said, you know what? Time to go.
Going on now, we are having sinkholes open up like everywhere. Everywhere. You know, I'm about to show you some other ones, but you know, there are certain people who say that there's a whole world that's active under our feet. Makes you think, right? I mean, look how deep this hole is. You know, you got the inner Earth people. I mean, kind of, they're starting to seem a little bit credible, would you not say? And there's a lot of earthquakes going on very deep under the crust as well. And this one just opened up today as well. This one's in Knoxville. So, I mean, it's very prevalent all of a sudden lately. I wonder what's going on under the earth. And of course, we just had what I believe is Trenton Pass, which happened a few days ago. Again, like I said, this is happening everywhere. Do y'all remember the great, I believe it's Panama sinkhole that just opened up in the middle of a freaking city? Look how deep that is. What's happening under the earth? This wasn't today or yesterday, it was a while ago, but I'm just showing you. This one's recent, I believe it was 5 days ago. And you know, for whatever reason, we literally have people illustrating under the White House. What would give them that idea? Remember when the Denver airport put up all those signs? Under construction? Underground tunnels? So yeah, who knows, but there's definitely a lot of sinkholes happening. What's this?
If the Fed can just print money for the government, willy-nilly, then why do we have to pay taxes if they can just print money at will? I know it's a stupid question, but this next video is going to make you realize just how important that question is and why you need to start asking it of all the politicians.
If inflation isn't theft, then why can't people counterfeit money? If they can just print money, why do we pay taxes? Wow. If inflation is not theft and we can just print money and we don't have enough money, we can just print more money and give everyone that doesn't have enough money. Why don't we just do that instead of paying taxes? Inflation is legal counterfeiting. Counterfeiting is criminal inflation. So central banking is a coordinated currency counterfeiting cartel that runs the world. It's a Band-Aid. You know what Milton Friedman said about inflation is that it's just like alcoholism. The good effects come early, right? You print the money, you have the drink, you feel good. The hangover comes later. The same is true of inflation. Every time the crisis comes, you have to print exponentially more money because there are exponentially more liabilities in the system from the last round of printing. And so this is why it's unsustainable, and this is why it always culminates in hyperinflation. Because the central bank has not only the precedent, but also the incentive to continue printing the money until the currency...
Okay, here's something that sounds like a conspiracy theory, but is actually just real. So a lot of people don't know this, but your printer uses invisible ink to track you. I actually found out about this on an OPSEC forum on Dread, which is like the dark web version of Reddit. And at first I thought it was a lie, but it's like very real. It's actually kind of disturbing that they're able to do this without telling you, but if it's important to you, there is a way you can get around it. This is actually also the reason that a lot of printers won't let you print even in black and white when you're out of color ink. Every time you print a document, the printer automatically includes little yellow dots that include the date and time that you post and the serial number of your specific printer. That way, if need be, that document can be traced back to you and your printer. And you might be thinking, wow, why doesn't a company just make a printer that doesn't include this and market it as like a more secure printer? And the reason is because it's illegal. You're actually not allowed to make a printer company that doesn't include this tracking information, and that's why we have so few printer companies. The dots are really small, and since they're yellow, it's hard to see them without a black light. But if you're in the dark and you pull up like a picture of Violet on your phone, they're all over the document. They are like very small though. I don't think you can see them on camera, but you can see them in person if you look closely and have good vision. So if you want to, here's how you can get around this tracking information being included on your document. So this GitHub project is called Data, and if you have a printed document, you can use this toolkit to decode when it was printed and by whose printer. But you can also use it to print a document with a mask of the invisible ink dots over the document so that no one can use it to see where your document came from.
So this one has a lot of lead. It's 1096 ppm lead inside the rubber, but it's not on the inside of the hose. Let's check out this one. We're going to see if this has lead where you actually would drink from. So this one is significantly more dangerous than this one. You can get the full list on detecla.com/hose to find out which hoses you shouldn't buy. And if you already have a hose and you already have fluorospec, you can spend 1 cent to go like this. That only costs 1 cent. Then go like that, and you can find out, yes, indeed, there is lead in my hose. Don't use the hoses on your kids, on your plants, on a pool until you flush the water out. Probably not a lot of lead is going to come out if it's been flushed and the water's just streaming through there at a low temperature. But if it sits and it's hot, then you got to watch out for it.
This is lava, and it's the coldest lava on Earth. You're looking at rare eruption footage from Oldoinho Lengai, a volcano in the East African Rift Zone. The lava is so cold compared to other lavas that it doesn't even glow, except dimly at night. A mountain guide fell into this lava in 2007 and was able to climb out alive. After it erupts, this black lava reacts with the air and turns white, breaking down into dust. One researcher who was camping at the summit wrote, "The dust crunches between our teeth when we eat." It's relatively cold because of its chemistry. It's the only lava on Earth that is based on carbon instead of silica. That makes its melting point low, and even stranger, makes it less viscous than liquid water. Its unique chemistry also leads to unique structures, like these brittle frozen geysers and these towering white cones called hornitos that are sometimes hollow and big enough for a human to explore inside. The lava is also chock full of rare earth minerals, making it the most valuable volcano on the planet. But I prefer it as a protected landmark rather than an open pit mine.
The Rubik's Cube has been solved faster and faster every year since it came out, and it won't be long before they can solve it in negative time, enabling people to travel backwards in time using a Rubik's Cube. The maker of the Rubik's Cube, Mattel, intends to use that to travel back in time to when they manufactured them, and the ones that they've already sold, they'll take those from the past, bring them into the present, so they can sell them at 100% profit. The problem with this is it's great for capitalism, but that additional weight of all those Rubik's Cubes will shatter the Earth's mantle, causing the Yellowstone volcano supervolcano to erupt, which is going to send the entire world into a volcanic winter that could last a century or more. So our solution is we're going to create the Robux Cube, which is a lightweight alternative to the Rubik's Cube that at lighter weight might not shatter the Earth's mantle, and we can solve it faster. We can travel back in time before Mattel, get the Rubik's Cubes, go back to the Jurassic era, put them in space, and they'll replace the meteor
So here's what happens. Now you're lying in a bed and your labor slows down, so the hospital speeds up the process by pressuring you to take the drugs that induce labor, even though those drugs affect the heart rate of your baby and increase your pain. So then they suggest an epidural, where they jam a needle of fentanyl into your spine to numb your lower body, but now you can't feel your lower body, which means you can't help push through the contractions. And now you're slowing down your labor again. Your baby's heartbeat is going up and down. It's like a little rave inside your uterus. And the doctor comes in saying, you're not progressing enough. The baby's heartbeat is erratic. All the shit we made you do has made everything worse. Why would you make us do all that shit to you? And that brings us to the biggest medical intervention of all, C-sections. Americans have them at an alarmingly high rate, and it doesn't always have to do with the health of the mother or the baby.
An alarming number. 1 in 3 women giving birth in America today having a C-section. But too often, C-sections are not needed.
Sometimes doctors or hospitals may rush a C-section simply because they think labor has gone on long enough, or because the maternity ward is especially busy.
Another reason for the major increase, just for the sake of convenience.
Doctors are rushed. I mean, when someone's giving birth vaginally, it can take a long time there. In labor, it can take days. C-section, very quick, you're in and you're out. C-sections are major surgery and they carry all the risks of surgery.
One of the biggest scams in real estate is a will. Every parent's dream is to one day give their home to their kids, but every parent's doing it wrong and it's costing them tens of thousands of dollars. Because as far back as the Roman times, estates have basically always been passed down through wills. But in order to go through a will today, you have to go through probate, where the courts distribute all the things listed on your will after you die and who it'll go to. But in order for probate to even do that, it costs about 8% of the gross value of your estate. So let's say you have a $750,000 house. That's $60,000 your kids will lose, and that doesn't even include what the creditors are going to take or what the government's going to take. So if you want to leave your home to your kids after you die and you don't want them to be left with nothing, you're going to instead do what the rich do and first call up an estate planning attorney and ask them to put your home in a trust and add them as the beneficiaries of that trust. Then second, if there's a mortgage on the home, you're going to get something called term insurance and make sure that it covers the balance of the home. This way when you die, the trust will go on, which means the home won't go into probate, and because of the term insurance, your kids won't be stuck with a mortgage payment or left with a huge balance they have to pay off.
Yeah. Cub fans? Maybe Suzuki fans.
Imagine a world without doorknobs. Hard, isn't it? This everyday object, often overlooked, was the brainchild of a 17-year-old black boy named Osborne Dorsey. Back in 1878 in Washington, D.C., Dorsey revolutionized door opening. Born in September of 1861, as per emancipation records, he was freed at the tender age of 8 months during the Civil War. Fascinatingly, by the 1880 census, a mere year or two after his invention, Dorsey was employed as a butcher and living with his family. His innovation, the doorknob, didn't bring him wealth. It took years for this invention to gain acceptance, replacing the traditional latches and leather straps. So, the next time you effortlessly twist a doorknob, remember to thank a black young man, Osborne Dorsey, the unsung hero behind this ubiquitous invention.
Going dumb, stupid zany, I'm still hella zen. Still slapping out the trunk, where's the elephant? Yeah, a therapeutic diz. When I gig, all my problems lead through my limbs. Glide through the bullshit like I'm